Hello and welcome to a video about Iceland. Now, excuse me if I sound like I have a cold, because I have. But regardless, we are pushing on and going through Icelandic coins and banknotes today. All the way from one eyrir, one Icelandic cent, all the way up to 50 kronor, which is 5,000, the amount of the lowest coin here. 100 eyrir for every krona. But shall we go over through some general stuff first? So Iceland was part of the Danish realm in the 1800s. So they were using Danish money until then. But in 1885, if Wikipedia is to be believed, the first Icelandic banknotes were printed. But since the Danish and Icelandic currency were still basically the same, these Icelandic banknotes were Danish krona. I should correct myself. But by 1922, or by after World War I overall, the Scandinavian monetary union had fallen apart, and by 1918 Iceland had gained sovereignty from Denmark, being an independent realm within Denmark, with the Danish king also being the king of Iceland, which meant that the Icelandic currency, the Icelandic krona, became independent of the Danish krona, which would result in, over the long term, Iceland faring with much more inflation than the other Nordic countries. But we can start off with the eyrir, which is the equivalent of the öre in the other Scandinavian countries. And it's simply just Iceland, one eyrir. Iceland is Iceland in Icelandic. You can see that this particular one is from 1958. Now, most of these coins are Republican coins, because Iceland would in 1944 declare itself a republic and dissolve the personal union with Denmark, also becoming fully independent. So these Republican independent coinage does not feature the Danish king or symbols or such. But we're moving on. So here we have the 5 eyrir with the plural aurar, and it's a large bronze coin, similar to, for let's say, the other Scandinavian 5 öre coins, which were the largest bronze coins of these countries. And this one is from the first independence issue that came in 1946 after World War II. And you can see here, along with the wreath, we have the Icelandic coat of arms, which is the Icelandic flag, basically. But it's the same size and composition, I would say, as the 5 öre coins of the other Scandinavian countries. And here we have another 5 eyrir from 1981. And it's simply not a change in size, but also between these years, due to the high inflation, Iceland redenominated its currency. So 5 new eyrir to the right here would equal 5 kronor of the old krona. So Iceland redenominated its currency 100 to 1. And despite that, the coin is smaller. Here we have the 10. By the way, Iceland has never had silver, circulating silver coinage, by the way, in case you were wondering. So this is aluminium, most probably. It's definitely aluminium, because it weighs barely anything at all. It's 10 eyrir. The design on all these coins are basically the same, by the way. It's the coat of arms, the wreaths, the date, and name of the country, the value, and the color and the size, and the value is what is differentiating them. And here we also have 10 eyrir from the new 1981, I believe it says, with a bowl on it, of the new krona, and a squid. You might be wondering, when did this redenomination into the new krona happen? It was in 1980, 1981, as you might guess by the coins. Here we have a 25 eyrir. I got plenty of these actually. And is that, or is that perhaps just dirt? Is that a lowercase I for Iceland? Interesting. So it's the 25 eyrir. This one in particular from 1951. So the eyrir coins were minted up until the 1970s, when they were simply worthless due to the inflation, so they stopped, and also began to issue high denominations of the other coins as well. Here's a 50 eyrir coin, golden colored. This one didn't exist until, like in Denmark, until the 1960s. Or that might complicate things saying it like that, but unlike Norway and Sweden, Denmark did not have a 50 öre coin, and so Iceland did not as well. They had no 50 eyrir coin until the 1960s. Now I don't remember on the top of my head when Denmark had their 50 öre coin, if ever. So I won't tell you that now, maybe in text. But Iceland introduced a 50 eyrir coin, and I guess this was since the lower denominations became worthless. They introduced these denominations as something in between. So this one is in particular is issued in 1973. Also very light metal. They're very basic designs, but I think they're rather pretty still. Now here we have the main currency then. Iceland 1 krona. From, was it 1946? Yes, so it's the first independence issue. With a larger Icelandic coat of arms. With a bull, with a bird, with a dragon, with a man, with a stick and or flag perhaps it is, and all that. Mythological coins. And here we have a smaller, but I still believe it's the old krona. 1 krona from the 1970s. 1977, when the eyrir had completely gone out of use, so this became now the smallest coin. And it's a absolutely tiny aluminium coin that it doesn't even make a sound. Barely. Compared to this. Yeah, enough about that. We're moving on. We also have a large really nice 2 kronor coin with still the basically the same design with a large coat of arms. This one dated 1966. Yeah, and as with Sweden, Norway stopped after World War One. But I believe Denmark and Sweden continued with their 2 krona coins, and so did Iceland. And then we have a 5 kronor coin. This one was originally a banknote. But yeah, due to inflation, it was simply decided to have it as a coin instead. This change occurred in the late 1960s. One in particular from 1971. So the banknotes stopped being printed and these ones replaced them. And the same with the 10 kronor, which also was a banknote. But I don't believe I have the older 10 kronor banknote, unfortunately not. I have a newer 10 kronor banknote, but this is from the new kronor. Although it says, it confused me too, the law of 1961, it was issued in the early 1980s, before the introduction of the law of 1986. So yeah, they did a denomination, but they were still using the same law from 1961. Yes, and that is confusing. But either way, the old 10 kronor banknote was replaced by this 10 kronor coin. And yeah, it looks exactly the same on the other side. So, boring but still nice and easy designs. But yeah, boring since they all are basically the same. Now, except for this one, is the 50 kronor coin. Originally, this was a commemorative coin issued in 1970 or such, but they decided to keep making them with a less text, commemorative text. So this became a standard issue coin in the 1970s until the redenomination of 1980. On the other side, this is a heavy coin, by the way. Issued in 1974, I believe it has the government house, or whichever it is, the government building of Iceland. Originally it was a commemorative coin for the 1,000 years since Iceland's founding in 974. Yes, when Iceland was first discovered by the Vikings and settled. Moving on to banknotes. We have the 5 kronor according to the law of 1957. I was about to say 61, but there was a law in 1957 and one in 1961. So this is the 5 kronor, 5 kronor banknote issued by the Landsbanki Islands Sedlabankin. I believe the Sedlabankin, or whatever it is, became the central bank in 1961. So these banks issued these banknotes, but they were not officially the central bank yet, if I understand it correctly. So here's a Viking of sorts, it looks like, or Crusader perhaps. So this is the 5 kronor, and it's pretty small, red, looks awesome really. And as we will see here going forward, the Icelandic banknotes really are into portraying towns and villages on their backsides from these different parts of the island. And as I said before, this newer 10 kronor, 10 kronor, from the late early 80s, but still according to the law of 1961. But since this is a new kronor, redenominated, this one equaled 1,000 old kronor. We will be showing off that soon, by the way. High denomination banknotes. But 1,000 old kronor into a 10 new kronor by the 80s. The name of the bank is now simply changed to Sedlabanki Islands, by the way. Since sedlar means banknotes in Swedish, and we are related languages, I'm just gonna make the amateur guess and says Sedlabanki means banknote bank of Iceland. But perhaps that's just wrong. Oh, and there were not villages on the backside of this banknote. Instead, Icelandic tales and craftsmanships, it looks like. Interesting. And then we have a rare denomination, I would say. I know Estonia has one, and I showed that in the previous video I did on the Estonian kroni. But here's another country that has the 25 banknote. Iceland. Sedlabanki Islands 22 och 5 kronor. by the law of 1961. I believe these ones were issued, they were not issued before or after this year. It simply was a way to introduce a new denomination when the inflation were growing. So the 5 and 10 banknotes would go out of favor. And I don't think they had 20 banknotes. They probably had 5, 10 and 50. So yeah, the 25 were issued and would become the smallest banknote. But that wouldn't last for that long, since the inflation would just keep growing and make them eventually worthless. Now let's take a break, and I will be picking up deploying all the other high value banknotes. Hi, and welcome back to the long awaited follow-up on the higher denomination Icelandic banknotes. We left off with the 5, 10 and 25 kronor banknotes. Now unfortunately I did not have the older series of 10 kronor. So this 10 kronor from the early 80s is what we got. But we just saw that in the previous video, so I will just have it here for reference. Moving on to this very worn but still recognizable 50 kronor banknote. Issued in the early 80s before the law of 1986. As we already spoke about, the Icelandic kroner had a redenomination in 1981, 100 to 1. So 100 old kronor became 1 new krona. Meaning that this 100 old series 100 kronor that we have right here just became 1 single krona. So highest old denomination being 5,000. So and that was supposed to be a large denomination. This one pretty large still, but worthless at the end, becoming only 1 new krona. So that banknote went straight to being a coin. But that means that the 10 kronor banknote was before the redenomination the 1000 kronor banknote. But we will return to that later. Just for knowledge, we take a look at the 50 on the other side of the 50 kronor banknote. We see, I think it's a printing press. It seems like that. Just a printing press in general. It doesn't seem to be a particular sort of printing press. Of some particular place, I mean. Yeah, so that's that one. So that would have been equal to 5,000 old kronor it will say the largest denomination before the redenomination. 100 new kronor was issued according to the law of 1961. So after the redenomination in the early 80s, before 1986, this would have equaled 10,000 old kronor. So large that it would have required 2 of the largest denomination banknotes to represent. More scribes, monk scribes. Very interesting. What is even going on over there? Yeah, so they really went with this old medieval style on the new 80 series, because if you check back at this older 60s, 70s series, it looks newer, more modern than this that they went back to. But for that matter, it also reminds me of the Swedish money during the 80s, 1780s as well, which had royals and old timey portrait and such. But moving on, we have finally 500 kronor. And this one's actually as new as being issued according to the law of 2001. But the design is the same. I guess there's some differences, perhaps small differences, but otherwise the design is the same as the 1981 issue of 500 kronor. Iceland continued seeing inflation. Some scientist or author, perhaps. The government house is the same one as on the coins, I presume. So yeah, more inflation. So I believe this is perhaps, unless there's a 200 banknote, I believe this is actually, surprisingly, due to the inflation, is the lowest denomination banknote still being issued. Because that's a coin, and that's a coin, and even the 100 kronor these days is a coin. Yes. So I believe that actually makes the 500 kronor the largest or the lowest denomination banknote. A 500 kronor. And then they redenominated to having the lowest coin being 5 eyrir, 5 cents. And now with 10 kronor banknotes, and now the 500 is the smallest one. Something the Icelandic economy. But taking a break, I will put on the table some of the largest, most interesting banknotes. We have returned. So here we have the 100 kronor banknote. And I didn't show enough of it here a moment ago, but I will redeem myself, because I for some reason thought I had already shown this off in the previous video, but we didn't get that far. So the 100 kronor banknote issued by the Sedlabanki Iceland, the 100 denomination had existed all from the start, I believe. for the Icelandic kronas existent. The 100 kronor is also a common denomination that existed across all the Nordic kronas. As with the earlier 25 krona banknote that we saw, the backside features villages or landscapes of Iceland. This one in particular, the volcano of Hekla, and a whole lot of sheep. So these are nice banknotes. As I said, compared to the newer ones that looks more medieval looking, having medieval designs. These ones look older, but I guess it's impossible to hold on this one. But I guess it was the trend back then to, as I said, to have that kind of design. But moving on, we have the 500 kronor. 500 kronor. By the law of 1961. Now this one I know replaced a more, not quite, but more rectangular banknote, as some countries had with their large denominations, more like certificates or diplomas than what we would consider a typical banknote these days. So the 500 kronor features fishermen. Iceland being a very fishing dependent country. Very nice. No name. Could be anywhere, really. Moving on, or, well, as I was saying earlier, this became 1 krona, that became 5 krona, so those were coins straight off from the start. So in order to have a banknote be redenominated into this, the new lowest denomination banknote, you had to have one of these really fancy banknote. It was once the largest denomination in Iceland, and that's the Icelandic founding father Jón Sigurdsson, I presume, and the government house Althingshúsið. It's the building of the Althing, the parliament, I guess. So 1000 kronor, the largest denomination, at least circulating denomination for all basically of the Nordic countries using the krona. But those countries would have 1000 krona would be considered more money than this, because The inflation made it rather useless. Here we see the eyrir. I have no idea what that is, but it seems to be somewhere along the coast. I think that is what it's supposed to be anyway, with a road. Absolutely pretty environments. And finally, and yes, what you see down at the screen right now is actually the highest denomination ever printed of the old kroner. It wasn't there from the start, but starting, I believe, in 1971, they had to issue the 5,000 kroner banknote. And unfortunately, due to the inflation, as I said earlier, it would only equal this one banknote, which wasn't worth much. But before that time, we had this really pretty banknote with a hydroelectric plant. And a waterfall on the other side. Dettifoss, apparently, and a man looking over it, looking like absolutely glorious. So that's the highest denomination banknote. Two of those, as I said, is what it would have taken to equal one of these in the new kroner. Now I must say that I believe the catalog value of these uncirculated as they are, maybe not after I absolutely destroy them with my clumsiness, but uncirculated were quite worth a penny. I think around 40 to 60 euros a piece. Yes, really. But I can say that I have been lucky and buying them not graded or by a large auction house, but private sellers, and I've got them for a lot cheaper, even uncirculated as they are, and I am really happy to have done that. Because I really don't have much uncirculated in my collection, because it tends to be expensive, and it also I especially not put much money into newer banknotes as well. But I have made an exception for Iceland. I found it fascinating. But now I have surplus banknotes for several of these, so I'm looking to take some off me and have up for sale. Check out my Tradera for that. But you won't be straight away. We will see about that. So, but anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something new about Icelandic coins and banknotes.